All right, guys, welcome back in. Like I said, joined now by our special guest on today's podcast from Soonerscoop.com. It is friend of the show, George Stoia the third. George, I appreciate you hopping on, man. Hope you're doing well today. How's everything going out in Oklahoma?
Everything's pretty good. I think that the fan base is certainly not happy anytime you lose to your arch rival Texas, especially the fashion that they did. People are not happy. So I think everybody's looking forward to seeing if this Oklahoma team can bounce back this week in Columbia.
Yeah, and let's keep it right there first, George. Kind of a vibe check. I always like to get a feel for where the fan bases are. And I know you just hit on it a little bit, but how have the kind of readers and posters on you guys' message board sort of been, I guess, in terms of like, I feel like for the most part, if you zoom out, this season has been a step forward, at least from what we saw last year. It was interesting to me. Oklahoma was a team, even with last year's season, they were already kind of being picked by a lot of national folks like, hey, this is a team that's going to take a big step forward this year. This is a team that's added a difference maker at quarterback. The season starts the way you want. Then you kind of just hit this massive hurdle last week, maybe a little unexpected, the loss to Texas. How are they taking that loss in terms of like the greater expectations for this season when it started?
I think it depends on who you ask, because I think there's definitely a group of fans out there, a lot of them over on Soonerscoop.com, that want everybody fired for losing to Texas, especially the way they lost that game and on offense, not being able to move the ball. The end of first half game management from Brent Venables was terrible, and something that we've seen at times throughout his tenure. But you're right. In a lot of ways, Oklahoma has shown some improvement. Beating Michigan at home again. I don't know how good Michigan is, but still, that's a nice win. And they kind of won that game handily, beating Auburn at home. And that game was tight, but the way that you did it, where you went down and you scored a late touchdown and then you got the stop at the end of the game, those are things that honestly we didn't see a year ago, and we haven't seen at times during the Brent Venables era. So I think everybody was feeling really good heading into the Cotton Bowl. And I can tell you, OU and its fans all felt very confident that they could beat Texas, especially with the way that Texas had been playing. It felt like a big missed opportunity. And, you look at some of the deficiencies on the offensive side of the ball and not being able to run, and obviously the John Mateer situation. And that's the part where you take a step back and you say, okay, they're sitting at 5-1. Yes, the schedule is extremely difficult, but if they can just get to 9-3, then maybe they can be in that playoff conversation and get in. And I don't know if they can get there. South Carolina's probably the easiest team they still have left in their schedule. Maybe LSU is in that same argument, because I'm not much of a believer in LSU. Missouri, they get Missouri at home, Ole Miss at home, but it's a brutal schedule, man. They got to go to Tennessee, to Alabama, obviously South Carolina this week. And so I think everybody kind of says, man, they just played so bad and the schedule's daunting. But when you do take a step back, I do think there's been a lot of improvement. Now it's, can they overcome what was honestly a really bad loss this past week, and where they kind of got exposed.
Yeah, and George, I think we're seeing, especially in the SEC, maybe college football from a greater standpoint, becoming a little bit more like the NFL, where you're not going undefeated. Like really, I cover a South Carolina team that was 9-3 last year, just barely missed the playoff. You look at a lot of the conversation around college athletics, around the SEC this offseason, it feels to me like a 9-3 SEC team is going to get in. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of context based on everybody else, but I would say a good shot, at least, that a 9-3, if not this year, at some point is going to get in. So I think certainly that's something for Oklahoma to aim for. Let's talk about Mateer. When I've seen like spurts of him, I've seen clips of him. Obviously, he hits the ground running, just an incredible start to the season. For somebody who gets to watch him on a week-to-week basis, what stands out about John Mateer? And then, of course, can you give us a health update on where things are going into this game?
He's a playmaker. I think that's one thing that you've seen from him. His best moments, he's scrambling or getting out of the pocket and either running with the ball, which we saw a lot against Michigan. I mean, he was their leading rusher in that game, and a big reason why they won is the way that he ran the football. And then he's also been able to make some big passes down the field. And he really knows this offense in and out. And that's why this past week was really strange. He made some really bad decisions. There was guys open, and he just didn't see them, or he overthrew them, or he was a half second behind. And a lot of that I would attribute to he hadn't practiced in 3 weeks. He tried to rush back obviously from the hand injury and, came back 17 days after having surgery. Didn't really practice leading up to the game. I think he maybe only practiced one day, was cleared on Thursday, and obviously did some of the walkthrough stuff. And he'll tell you, and he said it in the media, that, that's not an excuse, and, that he, got enough reps and all of that leading in. He just didn't play well. But I think we all know if you don't practice, and especially going up against a good team like Texas, you're not going to play well. And that's what you saw. And I think that that's why this week is so big. He's told us that he's full go. Brent Venables said he's full go. He didn't re-injure it in the Texas game. So it sounds like he's going to be practicing a lot more. Again, is it 100%? Is he getting every single rep in practice? I don't know, but I think it's a lot more than what he had a week ago. And so you're hopeful that he can bounce back and look like that player that he was early in the season. And the biggest thing, Wes, is what we've seen from this Oklahoma offense is John Mateer makes the whole thing go. If he's not on, they really don't have a whole lot because they can't turn around and hand the ball off and run the football. They've been really bad at running. They have pass protected extremely well. This offensive line has been one of the better pass protecting units in the country, but they haven't really found anything in the run game. So you're forcing John Mateer to make stuff happen through the air. And we saw that last week. That just was not a recipe for success, especially with a guy who's coming off a broken hand, hasn't practiced. And so they really need to get him going and get back to what he was really good at early in the year, which was making a lot of plays. And again, he needs to be healthy. And it sounds like he's only going to get healthier as the season goes on.
How did you frame up the thought of, okay, everything's so professionalized in college athletics right now. I appreciate a guy that says, you know what, I feel like I can go, so I'm gonna go. Like, this is OU Texas. This is a rivalry game. I'm the leader of this program. I'm gonna go play. Versus then you kind of see how he actually played. The level of play clearly, as you said, was not to what we've seen from Mateer the rest of the year. How do you kind of frame up like he was not himself and able to go do what he needed to do to win the game, while also acknowledging like, this is what I want from my leader. Like, this is what I want from a guy who's going to go out there and lead the program by example.
Yeah, look, John's the ultra competitor, right? I mean, he's a guy that he's not going to miss. And he was telling everybody, it was funny. I mean, around here, he was running into people at Chipotle, and people would ask him, "Hey, are you playing against Texas?" And it's like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm playing." And so I think we all knew if he could throw the football in any regard, he was going to play. And I think from Oklahoma's perspective, they were like, he gives us the best chance to win. And, we saw what Michael Hawkins did against Kent State. It just wasn't a whole lot for OU. And last year, he was the starting quarterback there for a time period. I mean, he started against South Carolina, and they were up 21-0 in the blink of an eye. And so I think that they just knew in a game like this, if they could get Mateer, to play, that he was their best option. And I think that he also kind of lights a fire in the team. I think guys were super excited that he was going to get to play. And you saw it early in the game. OU was moving the ball. They were able to complete a lot of passes. Mateer looked really sharp, especially with some of the scripted stuff early in the game. I mean, their first couple drives, they were able to move the ball up and down the field. And that was largely because of John Mateer. And then it just kind of, as the game went on, he really struggled. And so I think that it was one of those things that the team really rallied around him. And it's one of those things we're hearing this week too, Wes, is the team, despite the way John played, they're still very confident in him. The players really appreciate his toughness and wanting to play in that game this past week. And obviously this week as well, moving forward, there was a lot of people that thought when he first injured this, he wasn't going to be back by the South Carolina game. It was going to maybe be the Ole Miss game. So the fact that he's playing, I think that the team really appreciates that. And they're hopeful. And I think they have a lot of confidence that he won't play as poorly as he did on Saturday again this week.
Yeah, and you just have to respect that, I think, just as a fan of the game as well. Let's talk defense a little bit. Gamecock fans very familiar with what Brent Venables can cook up on that side of the ball. We saw it for what felt like 100 years, South Carolina going up against Clemson. And when I think of Venables' defenses, I think of just havoc. I think of the fact that it's going to look like Beamer talked about this a little bit this week in his press conference. It's going to look like they're throwing a million things at you. Now, they may have it sort of structured on their end where it's not as complicated for the players and for the Oklahoma guys. But from your perspective, you're going, we got to be ready for 100 different looks. What have you seen from this defense? I know they're really good defensively last year. Maybe that got overshadowed a little bit. But with Venables taking over it kind of this year, George, what have been the differences? What have, just been your observations about this defense?
Well, I'll first tell you, the players would tell you it is very complicated. A lot of the guys have talked about that in the sense of learning this playbook is kind of insane. It's the biggest playbook that a lot of these guys have ever had in their careers and may ever have. So he does a lot of different stuff, whether it's stunts up front or disguising coverages on the back end, some stuff that maybe teams have never seen before. So he's really good at that. I think that him taking over the play calling duties has been really good. And they were really good a year ago, but they've taken this thing to another level. And I think a big reason why is not just him play calling, but they've got a lot of third and fourth year guys in this defense at all three levels. You look at the defensive line, and that's kind of where it starts is, they have guys in Grayson Halton and Dominic Williams, both seniors, guys that have been really good on the interior defensive line, as well as R. Mason Thomas. He's a game wrecker on the edge. As we all know, he was a preseason all SEC type guy, and he's living up to it. This year. He's been phenomenal. Taylor Wine's a new guy. He's a third-year guy that's played extremely well. Marvin Jones Jr., who started his career at Georgia and then was at Florida State last year. He's transferred in. He's been really good on the edge too. David Stone and Jaden Jackson also on the interior. Those are the guys that really make this thing go. You mentioned havoc. Oklahoma leads the SEC in creating havoc plays up front. They get after the quarterback. I think they are like top 10 in the country in sacks and also tackles for loss. So they create a lot of negative plays that make offenses get behind the chains. And then in the secondary, that was kind of where the question mark was. I think they've been really good at safety. Peyton Bowen, a third-year player, has been really good this year. Robert Spears-Jennings is in his fourth year playing safety as well. They've got some young guys back there, and Reggie Powers and Michael Boganowski in their second year that have played really well. And at corner, Gentry Williams, senior, he's played extremely well. He's been a starter for him in every game. Eli Bowen, he's back. He was a freshman All-American last year, was dinged up early in the year, started against Texas, played extremely well last week in that game. But they also have a freshman, Cortland Guillory, who you'll see number 4 at times at corner. But they've just been solid across the board. The linebackers, I didn't even mention them. Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, both 4-year guys that play a lot. And they rotate a ton of guys. I mean, you'll see them platoon guys in and out in the middle of series. So I think that's the biggest thing with this defense is they've got a lot of talent. They're very experienced, and they're able to kind of flex that depth at times that kind of wears down offenses. And so they've been a really, really good unit. And it's kind of what Brent Venables envisioned when he took over is this kind of a defense. And what's crazy is they've got a lot of guys coming back next year as well. So they should be pretty good next season too.
Maybe something to keep an eye on in this game. South Carolina, on the other hand, with their defense, been better than expected, but just not quite as deep as what you're telling us about Oklahoma. So depending on game flow, depending on time of possession, maybe something to keep an eye on this one. George, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit more about the offensive side other than Mateer. I know there's still talk there about O-line play, still talk there about the running game other than Mateer. So maybe similarities to South Carolina there where the quarterback's having to do a lot of the work in terms of the rushing attack. South Carolina got out of that a little bit for the first time against LSU. Finally saw the running backs get going. What can you tell us about the run game for OU and just O-line play this year compared to maybe last year, a game South Carolina's front was kind of able to take over a little bit?
It's not good. I'll start there. It's not been great, especially in the run game. They just have not been able to find any success there. And they've had a lot of different, running backs, and the running back rotation has been a big discussion here this week. They brought in Jaden Ott, the Cal transfer that everybody thought was going to be a really dynamic player for them at running back, and he has just not gotten going. He barely plays. I don't think we'll see a ton of him this week. We saw him for one series, I think 3 snaps against Texas, and he just didn't do anything. So I don't know who it'll be. It'll probably be Torrey Blaylock, the true freshman. He's gotten the most snaps there at running back. But other than that, they haven't been able to get anything going. The offensive line, they've actually been really good in pass protection for the most part. I think they've given up maybe 13 sacks, which is actually a big step in the right direction. Last year, I think they led the country in sacks allowed with 50. And I think South Carolina had half of those. So I think that Oklahoma is looking to be a lot better in that spot this week against South Carolina. But in terms of being able to run the ball. Oklahoma just has not gotten the push they needed. And some of that's the offensive line. I think another large part of it is the tight end group might be one of the worst in the Power Four. They just are unable to block. They tried to rebuild that room through the transfer portal, and they just haven't been able to find a lot of success there. Now, in Jaron Kanik, he's the converted linebacker to tight end. You'll see him a lot in the passing game. He can catch some passes and do some things, but when they ask him to block guys, especially on the edge, it's kind of a disaster. So, and that's really every tight end that they have. So that's been a big problem in the run game as well. But in terms of pass protection, Oklahoma has actually been pretty good. I will say one note to watch. They did lose their starting right tackle, Derek Simmons, in the game against Texas. We'll see. I think he's going to be questionable on the availability report this week. I don't know if he's going to be able to give it a go. He didn't come back in. So look for, Stanford transfer Luke Baklenko to maybe start there at right tackle for Oklahoma, which would obviously kind of be a big loss.
George, final thing, man, any kind of keys to victory on either side, like just in terms of this specific matchup, what are you going to be looking for? What are you going to be watching for here Saturday afternoon in Columbia?
It's cliche, but it's turnovers. For Oklahoma, I think that was kind of what really did them in against Texas. The 3 interceptions were just crucial, especially the one before the half. Those things can't happen. And you look at the turnover margin, Oklahoma's just not been very good in that category. They haven't been able to, as good as the defense has been, they haven't been able to force a whole lot of turnovers. I think only 2 on the season, and both of them came against Kent State. So they've got to find a way to help this offense out, get them the ball back in some short fields, and then obviously not turn the ball over. And that's one thing that South Carolina has been very good at. John Mateer cannot throw the interceptions in this game. They can't fumble the football. I think that's going to be the difference with 2 teams that are kind of struggling right now. I think the team that can create some turnovers and give their offense maybe some short fields, I think that could be the big difference in this one.
George, we appreciate the time, man. And first trip to Columbia, right? Is that right, this weekend?
That's correct. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe we'll check out the State Fair. Any stops for the OU fans that need that are making this trip?
Oh, good question, man. I told you guys this on y'all's podcast. If you're going out there tailgating, like seriously, get out there early because the fair going on. It's way too many people crammed it. Like, and they have a ton of tailgating areas. Like, it is a pretty spread out. South Carolina does not have an on-campus stadium, which is a little bit of a positive on game day because there are a ton of options to tailgate, right? However, with the fair being there, if whatever you were guessing, like seriously, get out there 2 hours earlier. Like go early. I would say the night before, everybody loves Halls. If you like want a steak, that's kind of the big one in Columbia. That's like the kind of upper tier, most fine dining place you can go to in Columbia, I would say. And then if you're a college student making the drive or making their ride out here, 5 Points is still kind of the place to go, Bar District. But if you're actually over 21, I would say go to the Vista. That's South Carolina's kind of just restaurant and bar area. Lots of just good spots to hang out down there and, have a beverage, have dinner, all those different things. But yeah, I would say, man, if you want to get, so this is something people don't really talk about a ton, but the Gamecock walk before the game, it's actually, I know a lot of teams have that, but South Carolina does theirs really well. I think it's about 2 hours till kickoff, maybe, that they do that. But yeah, the tailgating scene is awesome. The cockabooses right outside the stadium are pretty cool to walk by. It's actual, literal, legitimate like cabooses from real trains that have been turned into like tailgating spaces. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, lots of cool traditions. That'll be on if you go to like kind of the south side of the stadium, that's where the cockabooses are. So, yeah, man, it'll if you're making the trip, you'll have fun. Everybody will be partying. It's a typical kind of SEC atmosphere. So
we're looking forward to it. I know that because going to the games this year and obviously last year, the tailgating scene versus the some of the games in the Big 12 is just totally different. So I think a lot of OU fans are looking forward to it.
And I got to say this, man, for you guys fans, like I was not familiar with your game, but from everything I've seen with Mateer and the whole stuff with the doctor taking on a personality of his own, Missouri has never fit into the SEC, and they've been here for forever now. Oklahoma, I feel like I can just say you're welcomed in, like you fit right in. Like y'all
There's
are
a lot of crazy.
just crazy enough. So
yeah,
y'all fit right in, man. But dude, have a safe trip, have a fun trip, and as always, I appreciate the time, George.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes.